If you can and you're willing to support us, please do so. We'd really appreciate it. We're trying to expand the platform, trying to pay these bills. You can go to dgutspodcast.com. That's Don't Give Up the Ship apparel, some naval pride and heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. Get shirts, hoodies, shower shoes, drawstring bags, all kinds of cool stuff. Dope stickers like these. You can get logo stickers. We got the Enlisted Deviant stuff, all kinds of cool stuff. More to come. Working on lots of designs all the time. We also have the podcast challenge coin, just came out. I'm really proud of that. And then if you also are willing to and able to, please go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast. A lot of really cool benefits, tiers, all kinds of cool stuff to try to drive support for the financial side of the platform. There's demands on all of the things that I want to do to expand, cost money, all the services and subscriptions and all those things. And I am trying to turn this thing into a business and a job so that I can do that and devote all my time to providing more content, services, whatever I can do that helps you out. So if you're willing and able, please go to dgutspodcast.com. You can also go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast and become a member today. All right, what is up, everybody? Let's spin some yarn. This one's going to be the MCPON AMA response video. I mean, it's really going to be more of like a commentary or a dialogue because I've responded on Reddit to what I really had a problem with, I guess. Which, the more I thought about it, I took a bunch of notes. Like I spent the other night, this is how much I love you guys and girls and whoever else. I was up till like 1:30 at 2 in the morning the other night on the couch with my laptop, like just scrubbing that thread. I'm sure I didn't read every single thing. Like when I saw something was just kind of like going down a rabbit hole that I wasn't terribly interested in, like beards, which I'm not uninterested in it in its entirety. I'm actually going to do a podcast with a guy soon about that, but it was more like that's not what I'm here for right now. That's not what I'm focused on. I'm trying to analyze the productivity or not of the MCPON's Ask Me Anything, and which it wasn't really an Ask Me Anything. I understand why they imposed rules, the mods did, to keep it, or to try to keep it from going off the rails. I think they did a great job. I really love that about the Reddit community, that when the mods kind of lay down the rules, they're largely adhered to, which is interesting, but again, it's another topic for another time. I want to precurse this, or like preamble this with I am sick again-ish. It's weird. I got like I don't even know what happened. Like my wife's really sick. Like she's a dumpster fire right now with this weird crud that, so like I had the flu from Christmas to New Year's, and it was still kind of like this lingering coughing up crap, and but largely felt pretty good. Was about to go back to the gym and everything, and then just got punched right in the face yesterday primarily. Like I had an urgent care thing scheduled for this morning, but last night I took like this super hot shower and the steam and I don't know what happened, but I felt way better after that. And then this morning, when I woke up to my alarm to go to urgent care, I felt good. So like I feel pretty all right. I'm a little fatigued still. So if I'm a little slow on the, like I feel like, and at this point, I'm such a dumpster fire of medical issues that it's hard to even tease them apart and figure out like what symptoms are part of what thing. But like a bit of brain fog right now too. So if I'm a little slow, not myself, I apologize in advance. That's just what's going on right now. But I think I can get through this. I have notes that I took too on my little notes app on my phone. Well, I took it on the computer, but they're all linked together. Good to see my sweet flower shirt because it's a little warm in here. For some reason, after retirement, I mean, even before that, but post-retirement, I'm like, I have a thing for tropical flowers now. I don't know. And like colors, like my water bottle. You've probably seen this already, but it's like pink and light blue or something. It's like I would have never bought. I don't know. It's the radiation. It's got to be. They cooked my brain. They took brain tissue out. It's not my fault. But it makes me happy. So here we are. So I'm gonna start with the positive stuff. because I'm going to start with like the main positive point, because I think it provides a lot of context for the entire thing, really. And like, there's a chance that this didn't do the type of good people were hoping it did. I mean, that's probably likely. But there's a chance it didn't do much good at all. I don't believe that. But there's always a chance. But my analysis of the whole thing, because I mean, when I saw the social media post, I was like, uh-oh, like, big oof. Like, this is going to be like you're starting early with your moment that's going to taint your whole reign as MCPON. But then I was like, all right, hang on. And Bob's like my sounding board for everything. And so I sent Chief Bob the thing and was like, did you see this? And yeah, he's good at tempering my my nihilist expectation, like my pessimistic expectations, or my like jaded perspective on certain things sometimes. I mean, I feel like I'm okay at that too, but I got to like give myself a few days, and that's part of the process, is I got to like talk it through with somebody like Bob. So he was a lot more hopeful for it. He was a lot more optimistic, even though he could for sure see it going off the rails, and we were all imagining like everybody just eating his face on Reddit, and like, but then like I saw the ground rules laid down by the mods. Shout out to all the our Navy Reddit mods. You did a great job. And then just the fact that I'm still to this day not a Reddit expert, even though I've been on there passively for like 4 years or something. Like, I don't, I understand it just enough to exist there, and most of the time not get in trouble for when I interact for breaking rules or norms or decorum or whatever. But yeah, I didn't expect them to, like, everybody in the thread to behave in the like largely in the way that they did. So that, I mean, a lot of that worry was kind of removed, but I just assumed, and I think I'm probably right, unless they incorporated some junior people, or there's just some people on his staff that are very well versed in Reddit. I would hope that there are, but my reaction was like, MCPON Honia has no idea what Reddit is or what it's for or how it works. I barely do, and I'm there all the time. And so my initial reaction was like fear for him, and like, dude, you don't know what you're getting yourself. Kind of like the reaction I got from the mods when I asked to start posting my podcast there, and they're like, "Are you sure? Like, are you sure you know what you're getting yourself into?" And I was just, like, I reacted the way I do. Is like, I have better people have tried and failed to lower my self-esteem. But, and it's not like I think it would have like hurt his feelings or anything. But I do think that based on him being the public figure on the scale that he is, it could have hurt his ability to do his job for the next few years. That's for damn sure. But, like, I don't know, like, again, the pessimistic side of me was just assuming that his staff was outmatched. And I think I'm right. Just based on the lack of substantive responses, but there was a lot of good that came from it too. And that's the part I want to focus on that first to provide some context. So, and I'm looking at my notes. I apologize again, brain fog, sue me. Like, it seems like his staff were as overmatched as I thought, but I was happy it didn't degenerate into the hot mess that I thought it had the potential to. But while the actual thread interaction by the MCPON's PAO account was disappointing, they did say they were having a hard time keeping up and would spend the upcoming weeks scrubbing the thread and working through to provide answers and solve problems. So it's super easy to discount that as like, some throwaway line that like, yeah, of course you are. You know what I mean? Like, but, and I was gonna save this for the end, but let me just scroll down. The account, if you go to like the actual account and see how they've interacted in other threads, they went to like let's see, it was like a thread on barracks in Coronado, I think. They posted a bunch of pictures. Oh, there it is. There's a thread about mold in Coronado barracks, complete with horrific pictures of Marines dress uniforms and like other belongings covered in mold. It's fucking horrifying that is allowed to happen anywhere ever to anyone, let alone active duty military members that are forced to live in those rooms and buildings. And the thread, like, it was basically like they posted it to Reddit and were like, what do we do? And then a bunch of people, their first reaction was like Navy Times and Stripes and all these like military media outlets and write your congressman and do all this other stuff. Somebody somewhere had the presence of mind to tag the same our Navy MCPON PAO account. And it seemed like I didn't look at the number of days or hours or whatever, but like it's a pretty quick response of like MCPON has already called leadership and started regulating because he was furious to fix the problem. And so that combined with we're going to scrub this thread, like, cause like not for nothing, like I'm not taking a swipe at anybody. They're old and slow. Like it's not just, and I'm not just like Honey is old because of course he is, because it takes like 35 years to get to that position. But like it's a bureaucracy. It's just a really slow moving, just like it's really difficult to get things elevated to his level, except when you're on Reddit or the internet. Like it's sometimes like you see success, and I reference Joanne Bass all the time, and it looks like Honey has taken some cues from my homie Joanne Bass over on the Air Force side of the house, and is starting to try to leverage these internet tools. But you got to understand, like, this dude you're putting like all of your trust in your staff, because it's like, and I'm not saying he's dumb or anything. It's just like, I'm at the point now, I'm 40 years old. I'm at the point, and I think I'm a pretty young 40 mentally, but like the rest of me's falling apart because whatever, you guys know. It gets harder and harder and harder to keep up with this stuff. And to like, do you think that man has the bandwidth to figure out how Reddit works on top of all the other social media platforms and building any of the things like we talked about, podcasts, and like putting all his all hands calls on YouTube maybe and all this other stuff? And he was talking about, like, one of his responses was like a transcript. And I think somebody specifically asked about the transcript, but it's like, it takes a lot of work to transcribe an all hands call. No, it's not. No, it's not. Not even a little bit. But he doesn't know that. So he's putting all his trust in his staff to be feeding him this information and doing those things. So it's going to move slow. It just is. Even if one of an enterprising young E4, sorry, my nose itches, cancer nose. I don't know what to tell you. The caffeine's hitting for sure. I took a bunch of caffeine to try to combat the brain fog. So if I feel a little hyper right now. So if it's coming across, that's why. God, my nose is so itchy. Not sure why, but cancer. So there you go. It's probably my ungroomed facial hair. That's probably what it is. Sometimes I get a little hair that just decides to go up my nose and start tickling me. Or like when I'm eating, it all goes in my mouth. Good times. Problems with beards. See, if we give you beards, this is what happens. Yeah, so even if a young enterprising E4, maybe like a CTN or an IT or one of those like technical computer-based, networking-based, internet smart people with all the certifications, even if you like invented a thing or a process, you like got out crayons, use the screen capture tool on whatever computer platform you use, and you like make this like simplify, and I'm not saying it wouldn't help, it wouldn't accelerate it, but it would still move slow. Even if you did that on, this is how you do the podcast thing, or this is how you could, the easiest way, because like his aide could post, like grab his iPhone 14 or whatever, I think this is a 13, but whatever, you know what I mean? You can make like freaking movies on these things. You could put a little clip on, I think they're called lavalier mics. They're not expensive. Sync it with your freaking phone. Like, every 5 minutes, this thing's trying to sync to the thing I use for my webcam thing for the podcasts now, which, I mean, if you listen to every episode, you know how much pain I went through to get this stupid camera to work. And it's not even 100% there, but it's like 90%. It's working. It's not exactly how I want it to work, but it's working. It's still going to move slow. Like you could get out Cran's forum on how to post all stuff to YouTube, which I can't believe they're not already doing. Like you have MCs, you have a whole public affairs staff, MCs that are like, there are MCs that could do this stuff. Like there are MC3s or whatever. Like I've worked with them a little bit before. Cause like when I was at Fort Lee as an instructor, our learning center, so there's learning center, learning sites. So the MC school at, I forget the fort that they're at or whatever, but it's where their schools, they were one of our learning sites in our learning center. So like I would interact with their SEL and a couple other people all the time. And there are MCs out there like, for sure, they could solve the crap out of this problem. Put up a YouTube channel, like create really great engaging content that I'm sure, like, I'm not talking about like AFN and crap like that. Like that's just terrible, because that is probably being filtered through older people and more archaic processes made by older people that don't understand the internet in the way that these young E4s do. It's like, you got to give this task to a young E4 or E5 or whatever, you know, like even a young E6, and just like get out of the way and let them do what they know how to do. And I think you could come up with a really incredible like YouTube channel that all of the things, because I think the mistake, and I'm going off the rails just a touch here, but you know, I do what I want. So it's like you could come up with really engaging content that like shared all of the things that he's doing and advocating for, so that, because that's what I think the biggest problem the office of the MCPON has is the unknown. Like there's so much just ambiguity, and like secrecy is the wrong word. It's just unknown. Like they just don't do a good job of communicating to the fleet what he's doing. Like, what does he care about? What's he testifying in Congress about? It's not like it's not out there, right? Like he's probably on C-SPAN or some other arcane, like barely watched thing. Like AFN's probably covering it. No, I'm not. And I'm not even trying to like crap on AFN, but the content's just not engaging. And I think that's just based on like, they just need to modernize. But it's like, you could do it in a way where it's essentially like people like, and I don't even want to use this reference, but like the Jake Pauls of the world, or like the Mr. Beast and all these other people that you see in popular culture, where like someone's following them with a camera all the time. Like one of the analogies that like, cause like what the Paul brothers are, what they are, whatever. I don't watch their content, but I am a fan of combat sports. I do jiu-jitsu. I'm that guy, you know, sue me. It's hard to avoid them when you are a fan of that kind of stuff. It's like, but a guy that does a podcast that I was listening to, he was talking about when he went to the locker room when whichever Paul brother fought Floyd Mayweather. Just think about how big that moment is. And like, I mean, like most people would be really nervous just to go get in a fight on pay-per-view, let alone like you're fighting who, I mean, you could say arguably, I don't think it's arguable at all. Like Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer that's ever lived. Just based on his body of work. I mean, his personality aside, like his body of work is, I mean, untouchable. But minus all the weird like exhibition, whatever, money grab fights that he's done after actual retirement. But they said they went into the Paul brother locker room and expecting it to just be chaos and like just like nerves and youthful energy and just insanity. And he said they went in and they were just chilling, and there was like Zen meditation type music playing, and he walked up and he asked the one that was fighting, and again, I think it was Logan Paul. Whatever, the Jake Paul's the one that boxes all the time now, but I think it was the other one that fought him. I don't quote me on that. I don't pay that close of attention to them. But he asked him, he's like, dude, are you nervous? And he goes, no. He goes, dude, I'm a YouTuber. He's like, you know how stupid this is? Like, I'm about to fight the greatest boxer that's ever lived. Like, why? Like, I shouldn't even be here. And so it was like this weird, and part of it was like this comfort with, they've had cameras in front of their faces their whole lives. Like, those dudes have been on YouTube forever. And so they've developed this comfort with having a camera following them around. To a certain extent, I think the MCPON, at least later in his career, might be a weird transition, but whatever. It's the analogy that popped into my head. I think he's probably pretty comfortable in front of a camera, public speaking, all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's a safe assumption. Just have them buy a freaking 4K handy cam or whatever and follow him around. And it's not like, I think you could teach him pretty simply he could go live on Instagram by himself, like, which, there's some problems there too, where you might want to have him filter some stuff, or at least hopefully he's like bouncing it off of staff first. But like, it's as simple as, like, I'm sure he has a smartphone, right? Whatever kind, he could just go live on Instagram and talk about what he's doing. He could he could live stream on YouTube, like his all hands calls, or his, it's as simple as, there's a fleet mass chief, that we have mutual friends that it's not really relevant, but, give me a second. I think he relieved Honea as Pac Fleet. Scott Torzik, I'm going to butcher his last name. I think it's Torzik or something like that. Sorry if you're listening, Scott, for butchering your name. I don't know how to say it. He does like a weekly, I think it's on Fridays. He does like a weekly little podcast thing, and they're like short. It's like little like motivational leadership things. Like, I think there's more valuable information he could be providing to the fleet, but I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a positive indication. So going back to what I've spent like 20 minutes talking about, not what I was planning on talking about at the beginning, but the context here with all that is that the fact that this man, whether it was ignorance or cojones, he didn't ask me anything on Reddit. It's kind of like that the Paul brother that fought Floyd Mayweather. It's like, he didn't even know he was supposed to be afraid. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't recognize it for what it is. But thankfully, whoever convinced him to do it, shout out to his staff member or members that got him to do this Ask Me Anything. And maybe he just stumbled upon some stuff on the internet and it was his idea. I don't know. Whoever was responsible for it, the door has been kicked off the hinges. Like, you can't go back now. We've had the MCPON, and I mean, arguably, like, he went all the way to the deep end of the pool. He didn't come on my podcast. He didn't just randomly start live streaming on Instagram. He didn't, I don't know, like, go on some much, like, if you go to the Navy Discord server, much chiller. Like, there's still some stuff, like, you might still get some weirdness, but but it's one of those, it's as simple as somebody saying, hey, the MCPON's coming, behave. And then it's not even close to the Wild West feeling you get on Reddit sometimes. He went all the way to the deep end of the pool. He said, I want to hear the unadulterated truth from people that have the safety of anonymity on Reddit. And I'm going to I want to get it straight from the source. Because what's interesting about that is it's kind of like you hear stories sometimes where like some fleet master chief or admiral like comes at like 2000 to a ship and just walks on board and talks to sailors and checks things out. And then goes and asks his staff, hey, what's going on USS Eustafish or whatever. And they're shocked at why he knows these things. So I think that him doing it, first of all, is a huge step in the right direction. Just the fact that he showed up, because, and it's an important distinction, like, Jim Honea is going to retire in a couple years and go off to do whatever retired MCPONs do, be a board member on something, or like Rick West works for like a veteran-owned mortgage place, and that, I mean, they do pretty cool things for veterans. They like pay off houses and stuff, whatever. He does some other stuff too, but the MCPON, right? And I kind of hate that they changed the social media accounts back to like now it's like his name. It's like it should have stayed the office of the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy. And this is like one of the reasons, besides it just projects humility, is it's a continual thing. It's not like it goes away. It's like the person holding the office transitions, but the office remains. And I think that's an important point to focus on. Is like the office of the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy went on Reddit and did an AMA. You don't get to take that back. So every MCPON that comes after him, it's like, you can't say like, oh, I just don't have time for that. It's too hard. That's not what we do. It's like, yeah, that's not true. Yes, you do. And so it's like the fact that they entered into it and actually did it is a big deal. And I think it's a really great step in the right direction. We need to then monitor like him saying, which again, I have that one example, and I think there's probably more, but I have that one example because he hasn't been in office that long, from the Coronado thing, where when his office, and I don't know if it was actually him typing those things. He probably types like this, like I don't know, like whoever was communicating through the account. And I know he was there. Like they posted like 19 pictures instead of answering questions, but I'll get to that. So the account said, and by virtue of the account saying he said, we get to hold him accountable to those remarks as if he said them, because that's what they were representing. It's like he said he's going to spend the time, which again, the thing moves slow, right? He's not used to this forum. He's not used to there were some super long, well thought out questions there that he couldn't possibly type answers to in the amount of time allotted. It would have been better to do like a video based one, which I know a guy that runs a podcast that has video. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not thirsty for a MCPON interview. I'm just saying like I would love to like get a bunch of those questions and like, okay, let's do this. Could even do it like a debrief, but whatever. It's he said him and his staff are gonna scrub those questions and then start solving I almost said a word I would have to edit out. Start solving some problems, right? Based on his behavior up to this point, and again, I don't have a lot of data points, but I got data points. I'm cautiously optimistic that you're gonna see some stuff in the next month that's him acting on those problems, whether it's just signals that the ball is rolling or him like bringing the wrath of God down onto people like whoever was responsible for that moldy barracks in Coronado, right? That like the positive stuff, like that's the thing, because somebody mentioned too, and I forget who it was, but they said like not only is the MCPON here, but you're going to see all those fleet Master Chiefs and Force Master Chiefs and whoever else are lurking, watching what's happening, because he's the MCPON. Like where he goes, a lot of eyes follow, or whoever is in that office, right? Wherever he goes, attention follows, right? So those people who are part of his leadership mess, or the people, there probably were like flag officers and commodores and just all kinds of people lurking, just watching what's going on here. It also opens up the door to those people doing the same thing, right? Like Fleet Master Chief, and I'm just going to call him Scott because I don't want to keep butchering his name. He's doing things. He's younger than Honea, I'm sure. Like a little, not like wildly, but like a little. So it's like he's, at least in like his Navy years, he's doing that podcast thing and he's doing some other things. You're going to start to see more and more of that because reaching sailors where they are is important. And so you see this problem of like sailors, and I point to this point about Russ Smith's G-Dub all hands call. Like, I think he got genuinely like pissed during the all hands call because it was like they don't know what he's doing, but he does. He knows how much pain and effort went into all of the advocacy and him fighting for funding for childcare centers, which is something he referenced during that, and all these other things. He knows how much work he put into that. He knows the just blind like stupidity that is representative of the way a bureaucracy like that functions, where he's going into these rooms and this means something to him. Don't think for a second Russ Smith or any other person that gets to this level of the job, even the bad ones, like, don't think for a second that you don't mean something to them. Like, they don't want to hit a home run on like getting funding for those childcare centers to be able to bring that deliverable to the fleet and say, look, I did this for you. Like, we did this for you. And here, enjoy the fruits of my labor. I love you. And then I'm going to retirement and to be a board member on something and get paid lots of money. You know what I mean? Like, even if you want to make the argument that a lot of people get to that position are just driven by ego and status and all that, stuff. It's like, I don't care who they are. Human beings are complex, and there's no way you get through a career in the military and get to those positions. And like, there are outliers that are just like evil, but I don't think you're going to get to that level if you're evil. You could be lopsided in your priorities, some of which may be negative, and we've seen that. But don't think for a second those people in that position aren't like in those rooms trying to get things done. And a lot of times they're either A, not able to get it done because bureaucracies suck, or B, it's the result is delayed by like years. And so the positive effect will come in later and they'll get zero credit for it anyway. But I think he genuinely got pissed off because he had put so much time and effort into advocacy for sailors and programs and that would benefit sailors and all these things. And then like they were acting like he's just sitting in his office in DC drinking coffee and like, I don't know, like what would he be doing? Like stroking his non-existent beard and just doing evil things to make your life hurt. It's like that dude did a lot of things, I'm sure. I don't know what a lot of them are because they do a bad job of communicating it to the fleet. And here's the important part. Pay attention if you're listening, people in DC. They're not communicating them in a way that junior sailors are consuming. It's not on YouTube. It's not on Instagram Reels. It's not on TikTok. It's not, and I'm not encouraging the use of TikTok, Chinese spyware, blah, blah, blah. But like, you know what I mean? Like podcasts, like whatever. You're not doing it in a way that sailors are consuming it. And I know this for a lot of reasons. One, I started the podcast because I wanted to reach sailors where they were, but also the growth and like dissemination of the podcast was hindered by the fact that I wasn't doing video and I wasn't putting my face on social media and doing reels and all that crap because that's what they consume and that's what they share. Right. So it's like, reach them where they are. Don't trust that C-SPAN is going to reach a 19-year-old sailor or what AFN. Like no one's watching that. No one's watching that except old people passively in a waiting room or something. Yeah, I mean, like it's not like it's on the old tube television in the lobby of the Gateway Inn and Suites. It's not on my phone where I'm actively engaging with it. So like no one knows what you're doing. And I would argue that a lot of junior sailors probably aren't even following your social media accounts in the first place. They would be though. And we have a case study for that. And his name's Jervy Loda. Go check out what they did with that. He was reaching sailors, like a lot of them. I got so many requests to have that dude on the podcast. So reach them where they are. And you'll find that you won't have that frustration or you won't go to an all hands call and have them ask questions that could have been answered by you posting that thing to a media source that they actually consume. All right, let's get into some of the criticisms. Because again, like I really commend that staff of people and I don't know how much. I'm pretty sure I suspect anyway. That's how I should say it. I suspect the MCPON just said yes. And it was his staff that did that, but maybe it was his idea and his staff made it happen either way. Thank you for making that happen and getting that done. But here's some of the problems that I had with it. Right. And I'm not like, I guess I kind of am. I was frustrated scrubbing the thread when I was reading through everything by the lack of answers or the non-answer answers. And again, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and I hope they prove me right. after scrubbing the thread for the week, like they said, and then taking action on a lot of things, and not just taking action, but letting sailors know that they're taking action and what that action is and what the result is, blah, 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 or like what the solution is and how they can leverage it. But I was frustrated by, there was a lot of non-answers, and there was almost, I mean, 40% of them were just updates on like, we're almost out of time, like I gotta go, and here's a picture of me sitting at a computer pretending I know how to type. I'm kidding. Like I'm sure he knows how to type. I'm just joking. But you know what I mean? Like there was a lot of that and not a lot of substantive answers. Like just not, there just wasn't as much as I would have liked. And I'm sure like there was a lot of sailors that put a lot of time into those questions. So it was kind of painful to watch the answer or non-answer answers happen. But again, I don't know how you would have kept up with that unless you had a team of 20 people in there on computers. Because I mean, there were sailors writing essays, like 5 questions, really well thought out, a lot of detail on 5 different topics. So it's like, it would have been really, I mean, I would have had a hard time keeping up, obviously, like, and I would have had a hard time keeping up doing a voice thing. You know what I mean? Like when I do those Q&As, it's like, which I love doing. I need to get back on Discord and do one, or see if Reddit wants to do one, whatever. But I don't think enough people care about me on Reddit, but I could be wrong. It's like if you did it voice, like with video and voice, it's like it would have been hard to keep up with. Like when I do them, I have the moderator like give me a question at a time. Like a bunch of them flood in, but then they like slow bleed them to me, and I do them one at a time, right? And it's like, and sometimes, I mean, I've done 3-hour-long podcasts, so it takes a hot minute to do them, but I can answer a lot faster this way than I ever could typing. Like it would, I mean. That just is what it is. So a voice channel on Discord maybe, and then all the Redditors come over, and I don't know. There's lots of ways to do it, but I think that would have been a lot more productive. And maybe you could just do a YouTube video. Like I'm going to post this to YouTube. You could do a YouTube video where he's answering those questions. Like he's had time to like think about them, formulate a meaningful response, and then answer them. I just, in the unlikely event that any of you on that staff are watching, please don't let him do anything like that if it's going to be a whole bunch of word salad and non-answers, because that's just going to inflame the entire internet, because now you've stepped in it. Like you're in now. Like it's like I'm a big John Wick fan because, you know, like they're just great movies and I love Keanu Reeves. But like where you don't get to be half in, half out, or you don't get to visit. Like if you're in, you're in. And it's like they're going to drag you down kicking and screaming if you come out with a bunch of non-answer answers or word salad. So please, please don't. Please, God, don't. Okay. So I was frustrated by that, but there were some answers in there, and I responded to a bunch of them because I got kind of pissed off. I'm not going to lie to you. The first one that kind of drove me nuts was there was a question, or not a question, there was like a post really about a guy. I'm assuming he's a guy. It's hard to tell sometimes, but that was, for some reason, my brain is just assuming that. Whatever. About a pay issue related to not getting retirement orders on time. But then they said they'd been in for 10 years. So I'm assuming it's like medical retirement or something. But he said he's talking about this administrative thing that didn't happen for him. But then he talks about the very real life consequences, one of which was him being homeless when he got out of the military. And the response was, did you get your retirement orders? And if not, let us know and we'll help you out. I'm like, he just said he was homeless. Like, why don't we help him with not being homeless if that's still the case? Like, why isn't that the question? I was like, and again, maybe they were reading fast and didn't catch it. I don't know. Like, I was just like, that man just said he was homeless. Let's address the first problem. Like, what? That's probably the symptom of a greater problem. But at this point, like, the retirement orders were time sensitive. He didn't get them in time. So now he's homeless. So you getting him his retirement orders at this point, fucking moot. Like, it's just not a thing we care about at this point in the game. And it's just like, I don't understand why that would be like your first question. Sorry, I'm writing down, bleeping out that F word. I don't get it. I don't understand. How do we arrive at that as a question that matters? And it's like, Then they talked about, well, so there were part of the response was talking about like the reason why there's delays in a lot of that stuff. They referenced the Red Hill fuel issue. I'm like, what? Like, what does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with pay issues and like administrative issues? I was really confused by that. And then they said some other stuff. And then he said, and this is like, this really got me after getting past he just said he was homeless and that's not our main concern problem. They put a lot of it, they kind of dumped a lot of it on CPPAs and admin staff at the command. This is a thing Navy, I hesitate to say leadership. The people in leadership positions, it happens a lot where they're like, it's on your command, go talk to your CPPA, who's like, I mean, everyone I've encountered is like a second class. And it's like pay and something. I forget what the acronym means, but it's like the pay guy, I think. Or girl. Pay person. Putting that on the command is just such horse. It's such a cop-out because it's like you get so far removed from being actually in the Navy. You know what I mean? Like a guy in the MCPON's position hasn't been in the real Navy for 15 years. You know what I mean? Where they're not in these like figurehead leadership positions. It's like they're actually like on a ship. And I would even say that like, I'd say the first level of removal is like when you're not on a vessel as a command master chief. Like you can miss some stuff at the command master chief level, but you usually have chiefs that are in the thick of it informing your opinions and providing you with the information and stuff. And you can just walk around the ship. You still have ready, relevant access to sailors. When you get detached and you're on like a flagstaff, it's like, that's when it begins, I feel. Or like you're like the CMC for like a squadron at the Commodore level or something. Or at like a major command where there's like 5 layers between you and everyone that's in the thick of it. You got to think the MCPON, like they haven't been anywhere near having that kind of access where they're like right there and in it at the command master level in a hot minute, like over a decade. So it's like they forget what it's like. And I don't mean like they forgot literally. I mean they just don't remember, or it's wildly different, which is possible. I don't know. I didn't stick around that long, so it's hard to say. But I felt a pretty noticeable and significant difference in just like how hard everything is now. As far as like we never have enough manning, but we keep piling crap on to the plates of every sailor that's within a command. And so like to say these like CPPAs and admin staff, like, oh, it's on them. Like you didn't get your retirement orders because CPPA or whatever, or you need to go talk to them. It's like, I'm sure that sailor was talking to them. Like I'm sure they didn't just voluntarily become homeless. So it's like, clearly that's not going to work. And it's like, it's not like the E5 in that position is not trying really hard, but like when you get responses from like all the people higher up in the bureaucracy that have zero accountability, it seems, that are just like, yeah, it's processing. It'll come when it comes. Sorry. Or they don't have enough people. And then you get into the issue of we deleted PSDs with no actual plan to fill that role with anything that works. It's like, don't put that on the command. Excuse me. Those sailors are already wildly overmatched with like the responsibilities that they have and the continual like increase in like things that we're demanding of them. And because manning is so atrocious and because like people on high in the bureaucracy keep firing off these nav admins full of program requirements for new and old and revision crap. It's like we don't have the bandwidth to do all of these things. And it's like, if everything's the priority, nothing's the priority. So what's the priority? Like we have acute mental health issues because manning is so bad and because stress is so high and op tempo is so high and we demand so many things of these sailors and leadership is incompetent and blah, blah, blah. It's like, at what point are we going to realize we're doing this to ourselves? And that, but you're going to say, oh, the CPPA and your admin staff should fix it. Like, no, that's the wrong answer. And it feels super obvious. So it's like, come on, do better. That really pissed me off when I saw it. And we were talking about, like, a lot of the programs that, and I mean this, like, internet websites and programs and the Navy app locker and all these solutions. Like, I heard Wes Koschhofer, when, I don't know if he's still afleet, but he was, he would talk about a lot of, like, all of these new and incoming things that are going to integrate everything and make everything easy for you so you can access it on your phone. Like, he was saying all the right things. I think he got it. Like, he understood that this is what we need to do, but it's like, I still haven't seen any of it come to fruition. I mean, this all hands call that I recall, was probably like 5-6 years ago. So he's probably not a fleet anymore. I imagine he's probably retired, but yeah, it's just like, you could, there is an IT person out there somewhere, or a company or whatever, that could fix it. Like, I can buy stuff on my phone on Amazon Prime and it ships to my house within days. It's like, there's functionality in the world that proves that we can do what he was saying during that all hands call of, like, creating programs and apps where we don't have 15 different websites we have to go to. We don't have like all these apps in the Navy app locker that barely function. And like, even then it's like people barely know they exist. Like, there's a couple good ones. Like, I like the nav admin one when I was on active duty, because I could, like, scroll through all the nav admins on my phone. It made things a lot easier to pay attention to and to keep up with. Right. And that's important for my sailors. Like, that's a big deal. There's a lot of programmatic stuff that comes out via nav admin that it's like, I have to be at a computer. Well, now I can view it on my phone. I mean, you don't have to, but it made it a lot easier. And then, like, the uniform regs, like, they had the uniform stuff in an app that you can view on your phone. It was great. I mean, there's times, like, I'd be at the uniform shop and I'm like, I don't know, like, let me look it up. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's something that it's convenient. It makes my life easier, which, I mean, we should be all about trying to optimize things and make everything way more efficient. And with the prime directive of, like, what's going to increase the bandwidth and decrease the stress for my sailors, like, for the end user of these things. Like, yeah, there's a way. And I think in the civilian industry, we've proven it over and over and over and over again with, like, a lot of the things, like Uber Eats and DoorDash and Instacart and all these things. It's like, there's these apps that, and websites even, that like the podcasting stuff that I do, like the videos and stuff. I was explaining, like, that on one of the comments on Reddit about, like, I use a service for the podcast interviews that I do that just takes a lot of the stress off of me. I just log in, I'll send you an email. I use a service called Zencaster right now. I'm thinking about switching to Riverside, which is what the PTSF guys use. But it just, I have the setup, and I mean, I've been doing this a really long time, so I've kind of gone through the growing pains of figuring it all out. But it's like, you just go on this site, log in, create a new episode or whatever, and then I send an email. And it's like Zoom. I send an email invite, and then it's like, we're podcasting, and it records the audio on your side of the connection and uploads it, so I get better audio and video especially from people that don't have, like, a mic and, like, a nice camera and stuff. And it transcribes it for me. The thing that you said was so hard and I don't plan on doing soon. It's like, it does it for me. And it gives me, like, I think there's like 3 formats, like file formats, but it gives me a transcription with timestamps and what was said. It's not always perfect, but it's pretty close. It would take somebody 10 minutes to go through and fix, like, the spelling and grammatical errors and, like, put it in a smooth format to release. But yeah, there's so many just mind-blowing tools available right now. So to say that we can't, I mean, Inceps is excruciating. And then okay, so I figured out how to use Inceps, But why do I have INSEPs and then, oh, it's time to travel? You got to go to this other website that's equally excruciating. Sorry, the camera's hooked to my stand-up desk that I keep hitting with my hands. Or like, oh, you want to review your record for the Chiefs board? Oh, you got to go to INSEPs, sort of, but you got to find your ODC, OSR, PSR, and then you got to go scrub your own PF. And it's just like, why isn't this all in the same place? And why isn't the functionality built into it for me to fix it and update it? And like, if you're going to make it my problem to maintain my own record, and when we have like admin people for this, it's like, then give me the ability to do it. Why do I got to put my social on my award and send it to somebody? Why can't I just upload the damn thing? Like, you can validate it later, but like, can I just like put it? Yeah, like, this isn't hard. Put it up there into the ethos or ether, whatever you know what I mean. Brain fuck. It's too easy to fix, it seems like. And granted, like, I don't know how to construct these things, so maybe I'm not saying it's like it's simple to construct, but I'm sure it's not easy. Like, I'm sure it's a very complicated and like arduous process for the people doing it. But that doesn't mean we can't do it, because there's people doing it all the time. And it's like, the really gross reality is that if incentivized by monetary gain, we can create Amazon Prime. But if you're only incentivized by taking care of sailors, taking care of literal people that you should have love in your heart for and care about deeply, here's INSEPs. Like, here's your OMPF and your electronic training jackets at a different place and your other things at a different place. And here's eNavFit. Everybody loved that thing I shared. And like, here's eNavFit that doesn't function on any of the browsers that are on the NMCI network. And the NMCI network, we can't, like, my internet when I was at work on a Flagstaff was slower than my internet underway on nuclear power on a submarine. Figure that out. And I pay $50 a month for the little T-Mobile internet station, wildly faster. So it's like, there are solutions to these problems in the civilian world that if we would just throw money at these really smart people and let them fix it. Like, if you brought in the developers from Amazon, just gave them a fat government contract on top of the other ones they already have, or whoever, I don't even care who it is. I don't have like some kind of like belief system in like which ones are good and bad. I don't even care. Just fix it. It's literally going to save lives, which sounds insane, but think about removing all of the stress and BS and the inefficiency from the administrative process. Like, this kid wouldn't have been homeless. Let that marinate for a second. You could solve problems like that by just cutting a check to a bunch of smart kids that already demonstrated the aptitude and reliability, like the aptitude they have for building it and the reliability of their systems in the real world. And it's like, you'd literally save lives. How have we not done this already? I told Dave Deary on the ELF podcast, like, so like, y'all know, like, my internal belief with like every cell in my body is that the main problem we have is leadership development and education. And it would solve all these problems. Like, the second order effect of fixing that would just solve all kinds of problems. And you would see acute mental health issues plummet. Like, they'd still exist because it's never going to go away. But the rate at which we have acute mental health issues and we lose people to like LIMDU and all these other things, including myself for the last 6 months of my career, would plummet. And why aren't they just cutting Dave Deary a check? You know, he has proven that he's really good at it, has the capacity to fix the crap out of it, and he's going to do it no matter what. So in the San Diego area, if you're in that fleet concentration area and you're not accessing the Enlisted Leadership Foundation for leadership development and education, I hope it's just because your op tempo's high and you don't have the ability to send your sailors. But even that, it's like, fine time. It's so valuable. If I was there, I would take leave to go to that. But if you have a good leadership triad at your command, you can use TAD money to send your people to that. So if you find yourself in like the shipyard or something and you're not sending everyone to ELF, you're doing it wrong. And there are so many like examples like this where it's like, you're willing to cut a check for like LCSs and then decom them way before their shelf life's over. So it's just like, I don't know if that's a great example, but it feels like one. I'm not super familiar. But yeah, I'm this one, like, this just boggles my mind that like these problems exist. Cause like you get these perceptions in the civilian world that like we're so high speed and we have all these capabilities that like they don't have access to. And like, there are little tiny outlier places in the entire Department of Defense where they're they're high speed. But even like if you went to DevGru, they're operationally, I'm sure, like just like high speed, have access to all the Gucci things and are well taken care of in a lot of ways, but they're interfacing with the same stupid process you all are when it comes to like making chief or like granted, like their panel members are all going to be members of the community. So maybe that they're like, you know, because it's one of those things where it's like, you're in charge. That community builds its own enlisted career path. So you have ownership of how you decide to promote these people. And then there's always the subjective aspect to when you get a bunch of those, like, I don't even know how I imagine their board is not just SOs. It's probably like SWIC and whatever. I don't know. I'd have to look at their panel membership, but it's like when you get all those people in a room, it's like, then you have that subjective understanding part of like, yeah, but he didn't do this or she didn't do that or whatever. Yeah, I mean, like there's the interpretation part where there's a little bit of wiggle room there for them to decide what's important, what's not. Like you do the subject matter expert briefs and they're like, it's more elaborating on the construct in the, I feel like I'm creating doubt in the process, which I have my own disagreements with how we make chiefs. But as far as like the ECP, and then like you go in and when you're briefing the ECP, the what should be happening is you're like elaborating on it. Like you provide a brief to decrypt any of it if needed, which most of the panels are constructed in a way that I feel like that's not super relevant, but there's a lot of times there's different rates in the room. So you got to like make sure everybody understands like, hey, this is what's important. This is what's not, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, like they're interfacing with a lot of the same systems in a lot of ways. Like when they want to retire, there's not like a special operations path to like they deal with the exact same bureaucracy you do. So there's not like, it's hilarious to me in the worst possible, like laughing because in lieu of crying, because it's like I don't, if you explain this to a civilian that's never interacted with the military, I think they'd be really shocked that we don't have the best possible infrastructure in all of these different ways like that. And not just that we don't have it, but that it's just so grossly incompetent. Like it's almost unusable. It's ridiculous. Like it shouldn't require a bunch of interventions from people like me picking up a phone and like shaking the tree until I get what I want to fall out. Like it should just work 99% of the time. And then you have like a trouble desk or help desk thing or function when those unique situations come up. But like, I don't know. I'm going to move on to the next thing just because I could go forever. And this is already longer than I thought it was going to be, or getting there. Mental health stuff. I've talked about it a bunch. I'm going to not spend that much time on it. One, because I've talked about it a bunch, but two, because I'm trying to spin up another like DGUTS umbrella podcast that someone else is going to do where they talk about mental health almost exclusively. So it's like, that's inbound. So it's like the thing that I didn't like was that they kind of mentioned, like they parroted the same answer everybody else does, that we're working on increasing access to care. Okay. Like you will never solve the mental health problem in the military by increasing access to care. And when I say that, I mean like adding more and more providers and resources, because until you solve leadership incompetence, until you solve all these other problems that are the actual cause of the mental health problems that we're seeing rise so rapidly, and the suicidal ideations and attempts and completions, actual suicides that we see rising so rapidly, your access to care goal, you're never going to outpace it, because you're addressing the symptom of a problem and not the actual problem. You're not addressing what's creating these mental health issues. Like, I don't have mental health issues because there aren't enough psychologists. I had mental health issues because it's just the stress of the entire career generally. Then I didn't deal with the stress of standing diving officer watching a submarine very well, because I'm not wired that way, and I didn't know it at the time. And then I didn't deal, then cancer, and then trauma of losing like close family members in a real way. That, like, all those things added up to I have mental health problems. A large portion of what caused that for me had nothing to do with access to mental health. You know what I mean? Like, and if there was just an infinite resource in that arena, only one of those things would be solved by that, which was like, everybody's going to experience traumatic loss of people that they love at some point, whether it's something that's expected, like, my parents are getting up there in age. Eventually they're going to pass away, and it's going to hurt a lot, but it's not the same thing as my 40, he would have been 42, right? Like a week after it happened. My almost 42-year-old brother, my 16-year-old niece, and my 9-year-old niece. It's like, that's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to happen. And it was all in one, like, all at the same time, all same occurrence, same day. Like, no one's going to deal with that well. Right. So that's a thing that the mental health care resources are there for. The stress and like PTSD from combat, like, that's what we do here, right? We're here to project power and like whatever the national interest is, pursuing that and protecting, freedom and democracy around the world, blah, blah. That involves kinetic operations. That involves combat. And people are going to experience things that are going to require a mental health professional to kind of work through. Those are never going to go away. And I think the initial ramp up of mental health resources was super productive because stigma, because like people just thought you had to tough guy your way through everything. And that's not true. That's not real. And I think we're doing a great job of combating that stigma. I think we're doing a great job of increasing access to mental health care and making it okay to do so. We still got a ways to go, but we're working on it. But what you can't confuse the two. Like, they're not the same. You can't say that, we just need to continue to increase access to mental health care to address all these problems. It's like, no, there's a ton of stuff that is causing mental health issues, a ton of stuff that we absolutely could solve, not by increasing mental health resources, but by removing or rapidly and like largely eliminating the root cause of the stresses that are causing those acute mental health issues. And then, like, the capacity for care doesn't need to be so enormous. And that's that's the biggest issue. And that's where I'll leave it, is like, developing robust leadership development and education would solve so many freaking problems, like including what I really, and I need to, like, I'm going to do some research at some point to see if there's any relevant studies out there in the ether, because I'm studying to be a psychologist right now, and I'm at the very early stages of that, but I do have access to like academic libraries and really smart. I'm meeting with a PhD soon in psychology that works specifically with veterans, to learn how I can do that later. And so I'll ask her, like, hey, this is one of the issues that I see, and I would really love to see if there's been any studies done on it so that I can put that out there, because this is just me. This is like my analysis for whatever that means. You know what I mean? Like, this is how I feel about it. And I'm open to be proven wrong about everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's a very real possibility I could be off in some way, but I don't think there's much of a possibility that I'm like wildly off base. I don't believe for a second, like, cause if you think about it and you're like, even if I'm like 20% right, like, so let's say like, if we just waved our magic wand and solved the leadership and competence problem that we have in every branch of the military, and it only deleted 20% of the acute mental health issues, that the second order effect of fixing leadership and competence by providing whatever robust leadership development education looks like that would do that, right? Where we could like kind of declare victory. Like, it'll never be perfect, but we're doing a good job. And that results in a 20% decrease in acute mental health issues, to include like suicide and everything else. Imagine what a win that would be. You know what I mean? I don't have to be 100% right. I only have to be 20%, 30% right. I would like to be 100% right. But like, and maybe there's a bunch of stuff you can stack on top of that, like increasing mental health care, decreased it by 10%. And then like deleting the stigma and everything else. And then maybe like, I'm trying to think of something else. Like maybe like finding ways to delete other stressors, like the stuff we just talked about with all the IT issues and bureaucratic problems and blah, blah, blah. Because those things, they seem to be like, I can understand why someone would kind of, if you're looking just at like NCEPs or what's that stupid travel program that everybody hates? So I'm progressively data dumping a lot of this stuff because it's like, I hate it. The one where you like go on and book your travel and stuff, and it like barely functions, and I forget. And then they put it on sailors to navigate it instead of having like somebody at the command that actually has training in it. And even then they wanted to put their head through a wall. DTS, there you go. Defense Travel System. God, I'm glad that was so hard because it means I'm forgetting things. Those things, when they malfunction, the second order effect is a guy's homeless. Or, you know, there was so many threads on the Reddit AMA thing about like people, and whether it was them relaying stories about their sailors or their own personal experiences, it was stuff like just like 6 months of BAH that they didn't have. So then they had to take out a loan to pay their rent. And then, you know, they overpaid them and stole it all back you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if the government overpays you, it should be like Monopoly. Like you screwed that up. I didn't screw that up. This money's mine now. Try harder next time. Like, you know, like it's like accountability. It's like, if take it out of his check or her check, take it out of the DFAS employee's check. Don't take it out of my check. Like, I didn't do that. I played zero role in that. So it's like, and you're telling, check your LES. Why? Because you're going to steal 2 of my paychecks to pay back some debt that I had zero culpability in creating? Like, take it out of that DFAS employee's check. Get out of here with this. Like, come on. Like, and there were so many stories about like Navy Marine Corps Relief Society as like a primary answer to this problem. And it's like, no, how about the DFAS employees or whoever? Like, I'm probably butchering the like where they work and who's responsible for. I'm not a CPPA. I'm not an admin guy. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I'm sure there's like Bupers people involved and all this other stuff, but I don't know. Like, come on. But with mental health, that's like, I think you could fix a huge amount of it by fixing leadership incompetence, but then by like deleting all these other stressors. Sorry, I keep playing with the microphone. I'm trying to do a better job of keeping the boom arm out of the camera thing. But yeah, fixing all these other problems whose second order effect is driving acute mental health issues is how you fix, or at least, like, fixing is the wrong way to express it. It gets acute mental health issues under control, in that the need outpacing access to care isn't the problem, right? The main challenge in mental health care circles should be how much better can we make this and what do we have to do to get there? You know what I mean? Like same thing with like habitability in barracks and stuff. It's like, it shouldn't be like, to contrast like the ridiculous Coronado pictures I saw on Reddit. When I go to school, I go to undergraduate college, and it's not like it's a major university, but it's not, it's like one of those, a lot of major universities have like secondary campuses in other areas. And so I'm at that where you can primarily do bachelor's level degrees, like undergraduate degrees. So I'm at a secondary campus because it's close to the house, whatever. And I'll probably progress to the main campus, which is a further travel for the PhD program, but I can manage it if I have to. The staggering degree to which they go out of their way to make students like comfortable and also just enable learning, like the resources that they have on that campus blows my mind. And they're all free. Like tutors are free. There's like a writing lab you can just walk into, and like you can make an appointment with somebody and they'll like sit down and go over a paper with you and like make you a better writer. It's free. Like I got a free YMCA membership to this crazy gym they have. It's like it blows me away over and over again how ridiculous, in the best possible meaning, like the best possible like connotation of that or interpretation of that word. It's like I can't believe it. Like even little things, like I walked into one space and it was just like there's like free little charging stations for your devices with cords running on them and everything, where like, and it's all free. I drive a Chevy Volt. It's like my commuter car. And it was because I drove like 30 minutes one way to get to the base. And my previous vehicle was a Jeep with a Hemi in it. So it was just killing me on gas. So this car, you charge the battery and then secondary is gas. And so like when I drive to school, they have free charging stations in the place that I park my car. Like it charges my car for free while I'm in class, and it does it pretty fast. It only takes a couple hours. So it's like I'm saving like a bunch of money on gas because they're just nice, I guess. And I know they make a ton of money in tuition. I'm not like blind to that fact, but it's an interesting contrast that the quality of life on a college campus, it's a public university, is like 100 times better than any space I've ever been in while I was in the military. Ever. Like I can't think of a single one that even comes close. And that should hurt your feelings. Like you should be pissed off about that. 'Cause we could do it. We really could. But all right, let's move on to the next one. So the next thing I'm going to cover is I expected to see Chiefs are toxic everywhere, right? I expected to see a lot more of that theme in the AMA, and I saw it a little bit. And and it's not like I'm going to argue against it, right? Like if you're listening to the podcast on a regular basis, you know how I feel about it, and you know that I'm not going to act like there's no problems with the Chiefs mess, because there's plenty. But I expected to see a lot more of that. But what I didn't expect to see was it warms my heart that I did, was we need more leadership development and education. I can't even tell you, I was grinning ear to ear as I scrolled through when I would catch those posts. And there was one in there that, she was basically acting as my proxy. It said leadership and competence in it a lot. If you've seen that, it kind of sounds like me. It's because that's one of the people that I just recorded a podcast with her. She's awesome, and I think I've convinced her to start a podcast, and I'll publish it and blah blah blah. But she's awesome. She's got a lot to say about a lot of things. It's like I feel like she's my mini me, but we'll see. Like it's gonna be good. But yeah, it's like I was really encouraged by that. I was really encouraged by seeing that Reddit is an audience that I perceive to be largely E6 and below. I did see a lot of people advocating for not using the terms junior sailor. And so I feel like I'm going to try not to do that now, because I think I understand it to be kind of like shipmate, which I talked about on that same podcast with that same person that's coming out soon. But I didn't realize it kind of had the negative connotations that it did until I read through this thread, and I was like, oh, all right, it's kind of like shipmate. Like, people just don't like being called that because we, as a leadership structure in the military, have made it that way by constantly treating them like they're children when they're not. Like, I'll trust you to drive this $1 billion submarine, but I won't trust you to live in a room without, like, I got to come make sure your bed's made. And it's ridiculous. But anyway, I was really proud of the questions that got asked and the advocacy that happened for a lot of issues, but especially the fact that, like, it was very validating for me in a lot of ways, but it also, like, it made me feel that the actual problem is much more obvious to that E6 and below demographic. And also, in a way, it was kind of sad that there's like me shouting it from the rooftops, and there's plenty of khakis that I've talked to that agree with me, but you could also, like, argue that they're the outliers. I don't know. I don't have a way to measure that outside of just my interactions, but, like, I don't know, like, I was really proud of that group of people. And I know there's chiefs and officers operating on Reddit too. Like, I'm aware of that. I guess I just always kind of, in my mind, I assumed the majority were E6 and below. And if I'm right about that perception that I have, like, I was surprised to see it, and I absolutely I was so happy that I did. It made me really happy to see that they recognize what the actual problem is. Like, they don't, Chiefs are toxic. Okay, what does that really mean? It means the Chiefs mess is functioning, is malfunctioning. It's full of leadership incompetence. And again, I feel like I still need to say this, just because there are casual listeners out there that might think that that's a swipe, and it's not. The reason I say that is because incompetence is kind of the nice way of expressing the feeling that you think somebody's stupid. I don't think they're stupid. I think these are all, the Chiefs mess is largely a group of people who genuinely care about you. They're sailors that came through the exact pipeline that you did and stuck around long enough, and, obviously did a lot of hard work and earned a promotion, but there's some subjectivity to that. But it's like they got to that place, and when they arrived at that place, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, oh my God. And so they, you see a lot of faking it until you maybe make it, or like just groping in the dark for, what do I do with my hands now that I'm faced with all this leadership responsibility? And a lot of them don't deal with it well. A lot of them just kind of look around and start trying to pretend they're, Chief X that people seem to like, or even worse, and probably more common, is what I did, where I regressed to my lowest level of training, which was none. Like, I started doing things that I swore to God I would never do. I always, like, filed away these experiences as, when I'm the chief, I'm never going to do this, that, or the other thing. Or, like, at the time, I mean, I didn't think I was going to stay in the Navy. So, like, I was always like, I'm going to be in a leadership position at some point when I'm a civilian, like, because I wanted to be a chef at the time. So it's the same kind of thing. I mean, they have this, it's hilarious. It's funny. The French system that most kitchens operate on is called the brigade system. It was created by a chef named Escoffier. And it's just funny because it's like a military term. And it was just a way of organizing a professional kitchen in a way that made sense, where the hierarchy was delineated and everybody's responsibilities by position were codified somehow. And it made for some good order and discipline inside of a professional kitchen, which is necessary. So it's funny to me that I never recognized that until way later. Like, I tell the story all the time about when I realized it, but it's like they're completely unaware largely. There are some people that recognize it when it's brought to their attention, like through mechanisms like this podcast. But when you're in it and you've never had any robust leadership development and education, and you're trying to just like, because I had a very real, persistent fear that I was going to fail the people under me. Like, I was going to fail the people for whom I was responsible. And so I had almost like this manic response to trying to like increase performance and do a good job and accomplish the mission while completely ignoring like well-being, people's needs, like taking care of them, right? Really taking care of the people, not like some warped idea of what taking care of a sailor means, where you strip a lot of the human, like you strip a lot of humanity away from that, and you just have this like idea in your head of a sailor as almost like a part of the ship or something that you got to like make do a thing, like the I don't know, like the Hypax pack air, right? Like that you got to make it do that. Any means necessary, right? So it took me a minute to adjust and figure out like, oh no, I need to take care of these human beings so that they can perform at the level I need and do the mission requirements and blah, blah, blah. That's what I say when I mean leadership and competence. It's like, you're never taught that. You just aren't, unless you got lucky and caught a great mentor, or you're really into robustly researching things. That was another reason why I figured it out earlier than I feel like a lot of people do, is because I'm a researcher. And when I recognize a problem, I immediately start doing research. I look for books and podcasts and YouTube videos. And I mean, back in the day, it was primarily books. Like back when I was coming up, it was primarily books. But I was an early listener of podcasts. That's why I started this podcast 7 years ago when not a lot of people were listening to podcasts. Like they were just starting to get popular in like 2016. I don't think a lot of people like do that. You know what I mean? And I was basically raised as a chief at Chief University. Like I didn't just luck into one good mentor. I lucked into like 23. Like it was there was a couple of knuckleheads in that mess, but the vast majority of them were like, they would have been the best chief on your ship if they were on just a regular non-special projects platform. But like I had 20 plus, like, and you know, some of them rotated in and out, and they would just get replaced by another pipe hitter. It was an insane, like luck of the draw that I just happened to end up on the, and I mean, not like I didn't pursue it. Like my chief at the time when I was on my first shore duty brought me a message where they were looking for a hot running CSS1, which I mean, we were just CS1s back then, but for this platform and special projects, good for promotion. It's a challenge, blah, blah, blah. My chief brought it to me. He's like, you're perfect for this. And I was just like, I'm in. Like, because at that time I had decided to stay in the Navy. I had already re-enlisted. So I'm like, yep, sign me up. And I immediately applied because that's the kind of guy I am. But thank God I went there as a board eligible first class and made chief, because it was like Chief University. And so like I got lucky in so many ways. That's not normal for most of the people you interact with for chiefs. Like I was already a person that I probably would have figured it out faster than most. Like I would have been like above the mean, but it wouldn't have happened as fast, and I wouldn't have arrived at the quality of chief I was by the end of that tour had it not been for the dudes in that chief's mess. Like even doing my own research and applying it, and like practically applying it with a division over time, I still don't think, I mean, it was the best experience you could possibly ask for. I was just immersed in learning how to be a chief at the correct way. Because these guys, I mean, God, they wouldn't give me an inch. Like anytime I screwed up, it was like there was always somebody within earshot to snatch me up, close the door behind me. Hey, dummy, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? That's not how you take care of sailors. And I was like, oh. And so then I'd, figure it out. But yeah, I want to point that out. It absolutely warmed my heart that what I believe to be a pretty solid sample of the population at large in the Navy seemed to recognize the actual problem being we need more leadership development education. There's a huge appetite for it. And, at the present, I'm trying really hard to fill it, but, hopefully the organization really puts their back into it at some point. I wanted to put, I'm kind of looping back to the pay issue thing in a way, but I'm using that as a vehicle for this point of, and I'm going to tell a story I've probably told in the podcast before. Sorry if you've already heard it, but pay issues that are egregious, like the ones you hear where people are getting like $0 paychecks for months at a time, or like getting evicted or having to use credit card debt or a loan to pay their rent and stuff like that. That's not like they were just being wildly irresponsible with their money. It's like the money that they were supposed to have wasn't there. So they had to do something because leadership was failing them. And that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that with because we've talked about already, like, hey, there's all these systems that need to get fixed. Got it. That's not going to happen in most of your Navy lifetimes. It's just not. I wish that it would, but I mean, it's probably best case scenario, like 20, 30 years down the road when some of this stuff just starts to get fixed by technology and intellect and stuff and money. Like they got to put money into it. But anyway, the ones that are egregious enough can be fixed by proactive leadership competence. And what I mean when I say that is, I'll just use the story as an example and then elaborate. So what I mean when I say this is, like, there's a lot of people that will communicate to you a story about a problem or like their experience of an issue that was negative, right? Where they'll communicate the story to you as if they were wronged. And a lot of times they were, but it probably didn't happen quite the way that you believe it did, where, for instance here is a story where I had a sailor, it was my last command in the Navy. I had just gotten there. So I'm a senior chief at the time. And, I had a CS1 that was she had a kid. So she was pulled off the boat for that, and was sitting there. And then she had basically completed her sea tour already. So she was just sitting there waiting for orders, and she applied for the White House. So the White House is shore special programs. There's a robust screening process where you have to get all kinds of crazy security clearances and like stuff you don't even know is real unless you kind of operate in those circles. Like, yeah, you got to get a TSSCI, but then they build a bunch of read-ins and special clearances and stuff on top of that called Yankee White and all this stuff. But she applied and then was told, you've been dropped from consideration. Like, she got an email from the admin people that were the screeners and just said, you've been dropped from consideration. The end. Like, there was no explanation. There was no nothing. So she brought that to me. Like, I think she replied to their email asking why, and was told there was a couple of things, but I don't think she was told in any kind of detail. So she didn't really know. So she brought it to me and she said, hey, like, is there anything I can do here? Which is what, I mean, if you go through that thread, the MCPON tells everybody over and over to bring it to their chief. A lot of people, and this is what my CMC told me after, and we'll get to that, but like he told me after, he's like, most people would have just let that lie. And so when she brought it to me, she said, hey, like, is there any other like thing I can do? Like, she's like, if I'm dropped from consideration for a valid reason, like, okay, I just want to know why. I just want to know what it is. So like, if I want to do something else in the future, maybe, and she's like, maybe it would prevent me from making chief, or officer programs, which is what she's pursuing. She had finished her master's in healthcare administration before she left, and that was her goal, was to pursue a commission through one of the 10. There's a bunch of medical commissioning programs that are specific, and one of them specific to like the administration side of the house. So that's what she wanted to do, was get commissioned and stay in the Navy and do that. So she was worried that like whatever this is might affect that later. So I'm like, all right, like forward me the email threads, give me all the points of contact, and I'll figure it out. So I say that almost flippantly. There's a huge difference between senior chief or master chief picking up the phone and calling whoever it is, whether it's an officer, like an ECM, or like a screener and for the White House, or whatever it is. Huge difference. And I'm not saying there should be if you're doing your job correctly, but there just is. So if you're gonna get something done and you're meeting resistance, or if you need to get something done and you're meeting resistance, my calling is a lot different than you calling. And that's not to say I'm always going to get it done. So in that case, I'm just senior chief, whoever. I might have had to go get my CMC involved, and I would have. And he would have done it because he was a great CMC. So then think about the escalation of force there, right? So we went from CS1 whoever to senior chief whoever, which, that's a pretty big leap, but I'm just another senior chief at the time, to a command master chief of a flagstaff. We're at big guns territory now. He was probably, he's only like 3 or 4 steps removed from being the MCPON at the level he was at. Maybe 5. I don't know. I'd have to count. I'm not going to do that right now. Because, he was in consideration to be the force, I think. And then then fleet, then MCPON. So, yeah, 3 or 4 levels removed. So it's a whole different thing. He was going to like MCPON leadership mess meetings and shit. So it's like he was up there. So at this point it's on me. So she forwards me all the emails chains that she had. So I had all the points of contact, blah, blah, blah. So I sent some emails, picked up the phone a few times, and I was just like, hey, what's going on here? So I think I emailed for the first person. It was like a first class that she was interacting with, who was just like a point of contact in that office. And so he or she, I forget, said like, hey, call my chief, basically, and gave me the point of contact for a master chief in that office. So I called and I was like, hey, what's going on here? And I understand if you can't provide me with some form of granularity because of some privacy thing or something, but I just want to know why she wasn't selected. And I was told it was so stupid. I was told she's not submarine qualified and she still owes sea duty. And I'm like, that's not true. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's not true. I'm like, if you're seeing in her record she's not submarine qualified, I can fix that in a day. I'll have her bring me the documentation tomorrow and I'll email it to you. And she's like, oh, great. And then the other thing was they said the Force CS had said she still owed sea time. I was like, that's not true either. I was like, I will get you emails from the Force CS and the detailer saying that is unequivocally false. And she's like, oh, great. That would be great. That would fix it. And I'm like, really? You're just going to turn it back on? She's like, yeah, get me that information. Get me those emails and get me. And so the next day, because I knew the Force CS personally and I knew the detailer personally, buddies of mine. And so I got on the phone and emailed and Facebook messaged and whatever. And the next day, CS1 brought in her proof that she was submarine qualified, and it brought to light hey, you need to scrub your record because this is ridiculous. This should be in there and fixed already. She's a board eligible first class. So we had a mentoring session in that regard of you need to do all these things to fix it in your record, not just hand it to me as a scanned PDF to fix this one problem that you have. Because in that way, she was correct that it could have affected her making chief or her getting selected. Probably less so getting selected for the officer program, but still, it could have affected it. So she scanned me all the documentation and emailed it to me. And then the next day, because I was Facebook messaging people after hours, hey, I need this tomorrow. I need you to just shoot me an email saying, this is untrue. She's completed her sea tour. The CS submarine detailer has no interest in detailing her back to sea. And even this was the best part of the email. Shout out to Josh. he's in the email. He said, even if you don't select her, she's going to shore duty. Like, I'm not, if she's not an asset that I'm going to detail to sea duty under any circumstance, because she's done with that tour and will go to shore duty. So I sent all that stuff up, and I was standing by for an answer from them or something. We got a letter saying, yeah, and they did it. They were doing like some kind of celebratory all hands call thing. And of course, I'm down in my basement office cubicle, doing work. And my CMC comes down and it's like smacking me on the back, like, good job, man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, oh, you didn't know? And a CS1 got selected to go to the White House. And I was like, oh, cool. And just went back to what I was doing. And he's like, I heard you got like super involved and you like called them and did all this stuff. Like, she had got dropped from consideration. Cause like, I guess I wasn't even there. I don't know why, but whenever it might've been, she got like called into the Admiral's office and congratulated kind of thing. I don't know if it was, I would have been at an all hands call, but, if I was at work, that's another story for another time, kids. So I was at my desk and I'm assuming they just called her in to notify her, handed her the letter, blah, blah, blah. And, she said, I was dropped from consideration, and senior got involved. We sent them they told us why finally. And then we submitted the things and it got turned back on, and then I was selected. And so he was over the moon. And I'm like, dude, I just did my job. I was so unimpressed. And I thought he should be unimpressed too. We almost started arguing about it just cause that's, the type of duty is and he, in his mind, and it was, looking back, it was extremely valid, is he wanted to reinforce that type of behavior in his chiefs because it wasn't normal. And he's like, most people, when they got the rejection email, would have just let that lie and been like, I don't know, I guess, something, they screen people, they're the screeners, and they said no, so time to move on. And that's, as an answer, telling me, that's disgusting to me. That's a leadership failure to me. But I don't think what I did was exceptional as far as what I expect out of a leader in that position, right? Maybe it's exceptional when you're looking at the status quo, but I don't believe that should be the status quo. I believe what I did should be the status quo. I didn't do anything. I spent an hour or two on that. You know what I mean? It's not like I spent weeks arguing and elevating it and doing all this crazy advocacy. I said that was just a thing I did that day. You know what I mean? It wasn't a big deal to me. It wasn't a huge time or effort suck, where I really put my back into it or anything. I mean, it was super easy. And I mean, I had kind of half forgotten about it when he came down and was telling me what a great job I did. I'm like, what are you talking? I would expect any chief in the same position to do the same thing I did. And if necessary, elevate it to the CMC. And I would have went and stood on my CMC's desk if I had to. I wouldn't, because, he would have engaged immediately. But if I had a different CMC, but yeah, I in much the same way that, because that's likely going to be the result. You're not going to have to put a lot of effort into it. I've done it with pay too. I got on the phone about a guy I had on my last submarine where it was we discovered that his time and rate and advancement dates were wrong. So we mapped him to E4, but when we looked back, we saw that there was a bunch of stuff jacked up with his pay dates and time and rate dates. So what it ended up being was he should have gotten a whole bunch of pay that he didn't get, and he would have been eligible for second class earlier, based on all these things. And it's just I got on I had to pull some teeth. I was pressing our admin people pretty hard. And then the YN2, who's just, he's a YN1 if he's not a chief by now, which he probably is, but he got mapped to YN1 while I was on that boat. But at the time, he just called me in the office. He's like, hey, I got this chief on the phone from PERS. He wants to talk to you about this guy. I'm like, all right. So got on the phone with him, talked to him, and he he did some chief magic that fixed it in the best possible way that day, that second, and got him all his back pay. And then voila, he's eligible for second class, all without us having to go through this like crazy administrative process of like appealing thing. I might have had to do like a BCNR and stuff. And instead, this chief at PERS like just fixed it because he was able to, and he knew it was the right thing to do, and he didn't need to elevate it. And whether he operated in a gray area at all, I'm not sure. Like as far as like procedurally and stuff, I don't know. It felt like maybe there was a little bit of that where he was just like, I should probably go talk to my supervisor, but I don't think I need to. This is pretty cut and dry, and I'm just going to do this and fix this for you. And a little part of that was because he was on the phone with a senior chief. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of instances like that in my career, and they have an episode called Chief Magic that like some kid I think on Reddit or somewhere asked me like what that was all about and how we just magically get things done. It's not magic. It's just leveraging the network. It's all the things that you talk about during the chief season. And the one of the biggest, most powerful things that happens because of that network that everybody likes to dump on so much is moments like these where we build this sense of duty to the organization and like loyalty to other chiefs, even if we don't know them readily, like for good or for better or worse. There's a lot of good that can come from it if you leverage it correctly. And these are those moments. So that's what I'm saying. When you encounter these pay issues, the first thing the MCPON said was bring it to your chief. Okay. There's a lot of distrust in the mess right now and there's good reasons for that. But for the chief, I'm speaking to these chiefs. You can fix this. You can fix a lot of these things by just engaging. Like a lot of chiefs, I feel like they think like they're probably feel like they're barely treading water in their duties and responsibilities of being the chief of that division or department or whatever for the leadership and competence reasons I covered earlier. But they also think about it like it's a tall ask. Like it's like they're looking at it like it's this really big ask of like, I gotta like do all this crazy admin heavy lifting or like get on the phone or some hybrid of and get in these instructions and figure all these things out. It's like most of the time, all you got to do is pick up the phone and call another chief. It's like, because like the worst thing that will happen is they'll tell you where to look. So it deletes a lot of the burden that would be on you of trying to find the answer in one of these crazy books that we have. But what might also happen is I was on the phone for 10 minutes with this dude, and my yeoman, who is an expert, did a lot of the stuff that would have been that me trying to decode admin stuff that I don't understand. But a lot of times what you can just do is call somebody. And it took me a while to learn that. Like I felt like I was always calling an adversary in that I needed to know what the book said so they couldn't dismiss me, because that can happen too, right? Where like you can get somebody on the phone and they can, based on their tribal knowledge and like leadership incompetence, they're going to try to dismiss me as like, no, you can't do that. And I need to be equipped with the ammunition to be like, actually, you know what I mean? So, but a lot of times what you're going to encounter is somebody that wants to help you because you're a chief, if not for the right reason, which is because you're advocating for a sailor's well-being. It could be either or, could be both, could be a combination. But if I do encounter somebody that would have dismissed a first class or second class calling, but will help a chief, okay, I'll take it. If that's what, like, I don't think that's the right way to look at it on their end, but like, also, I'm just here to fix the problem for my sailor. I can't fix the whole Navy. I mean, I'm trying to now via this podcast. Not the whole Navy, but you know what I mean. But just by picking up the phone and it being a chief to chief conversation, you'd be pretty shocked at what you can accomplish and how simple it is and how easy it is to get that done. It's just like, look, this is what's going on. What do you need for me to get this fixed? And then they give you a list, and then you go do it and send them those emails like I did in the case of the White House thing, or get on the phone with this not Millington, Bupers guy, like I did, and it's done. And it didn't take a lot of my bandwidth at all because I had help from experts, but also like I had the institutional expertise to recognize the problem for what it is, because he brought me like a pay problem. And then I figured out what was going on there with a little help from my admin friends. And then I said, okay, here's the problem, admin friends, please engage on fixing this. And that's when and I did that primarily because I knew my yeomen were awesome and I knew they would engage. But if I had crappy ones, I would have probably done a lot of it myself, or there would have been some like metaphorical bludgeoning involved with where I'm beating them over the head with my anchor and star to get it forced, the function forced, right? In this case, I didn't have to because they were great. And that ended in the conversation. I mean, I put like 2 hours into that, and he got like a boatload, like I'm talking like 5-figure back pay, and now he's eligible for second class. Like, for a third class like that had some issues before, I mean, for him to get a $15,000 check in back pay, I mean, that's enormous. That he didn't even know he was owed until we like dove into this, because he brought me some pay issue. Like, I think I was supposed to receive a little more money than I did, or he brought me like my LES says the wrong pay grade, I think. And then when we dug into it, he had no idea he was about to get that check and all this other stuff was about to happen. But I went CSI on his LESs and figured it out. And you know, and I did ask some questions of my whatever CPPA or yeoman or whatever it was, but it wasn't like I just handed it off to them. Like, no, I'm going to make sure this gets fixed. And so that MCPON saying, bring this to your chief's attention, that's what he really means. If you don't have a chief to whose attention you can bring it and action results, go find one, right? I'm kind of out of the game now, but I'll help you if I can, or I'll direct you to the people that I think can or whatever. But there's a chief in your command that will advocate for you if you have that type of an issue, or there's a chief within arm's reach. Maybe they're not inside the lifelines of your specific UIC, but there's a chief you can access that will help. And there were some people in the comments of that Reddit thread saying, you know, like, if your direct chief won't help you, don't infer, which some of them did, that if one chief won't help you, none of them will, right? It's a human organization, right? It's built of human beings who are wildly varying in every way, right? So you can encounter a guy like me, and I mean, those two sailors were CSs. That doesn't mean I've done two successful BCNRs in my career. One of them wasn't for a CS. It was for an A-ganger, where we got a bunch of back pay. He went from being a senior second class to a board eligible first class who picked up chief the very next cycle that he didn't even know he was eligible for. So he went from being a second class to a chief in like, I mean, it was like 8 months. It was a very short period of time. Like, his head was probably spinning, but I've advocated for and fixed problems for, like, on active duty, a ton of sailors that were not in my division or in my direct sphere of influence and responsibility all the time. And it's just like, there's someone out there that will help you. You just got to find them. And sometimes that can be the uncomfortable and arguably painful part, but they do exist. And so it's like, in the imperfect environment in which we operate, I would encourage those chiefs to do as much as they can without overwhelming themselves, because you can't be everybody's chief, even though, God help me, I tried. And because it'll destroy you. But also there's onus on those sailors. Like, you got to go find them. Like, that, it's operating in the imperfect environment that we are, and the wildly imperfect chiefs mess that we have. You got to go find them, but they exist. And I'm happy to help you find them if I can, but I'm telling you, they exist, and they are passionately engaging in fixing problems for sailors, but you got to go find them. And that's what sucks about it, is like, if your chief's not that person, first of all, I'm sorry on behalf of the organization, on behalf of the mess, but that doesn't mean your department chief's not. That doesn't mean your CMC's not, or your SEL's not. That doesn't mean that the next echelon up CMC's not. That doesn't mean that if you travel laterally to another chief's mess that they're not, right? And you can find a chief that'll help you. And that help may look like them coming and punching your chief in their face, metaphorically, like closed door conversationally. But sometimes that's what you got to do to get things done. And I've done that too. All right. So I talked about that one already. There was one thing I thought was really interesting about, there was a single mother who was co-parenting, like still on good terms with a parent. And they were saying, like, the Air Force has a policy, apparently. That's what this person was saying. I haven't looked it up, but apparently the Air Force has a policy where co-parents get co-located like married couples do. But because this couple had gotten divorced, the details were just like, nope, sucks to suck, nerd. You're going to C command. And she's like, because then you like, how do you have childcare issues you have to solve. So this feels like an underhand pitch to MCPON, right? The Air Force is already doing it. Walk over to Joanne Bass's office, copy your homework, and get the CNO to sign off on it. Like this is like Admiral Richardson authorizing female buns through the hole in the ball cap. Like this is one of those ones where it's like, I mean, maybe there's a little more involved because you got to get an instruction revision approved, but you could fire out a nav admin tomorrow. And it's not going to fix her problem immediately, but it's going to prevent future problems from occurring. And then eventually she can use that nav admin / instruction revision to co-locate with her co-parent, which makes all the sense in the world and removes a tremendous amount of stress on those people that, you guessed it, can cause acute mental health issues that we're so concerned about. So maybe take the win. I mean, this isn't a super easy fix. So go talk to the GOAT. Go talk to Joanne Bass real quick and copy your homework. Like I literally did that once. God bless the Air Force. Like I know a lot of people dump on them, but they're doing a lot of things that, like, it's kind of weird. It's like there's like a progressive, word progressive in the political ether is not what I mean. Within the Air Force, it seems like a progressive branch where they really are trying to make quality of life better for their service members. And they're trying to modernize a lot of things and do a lot of things that just make sense that the military has largely been resistant to. And I think there's a lot of things that they do really well. I worked with the Air Force when I was on Fort Lee. There's some things they do that I passionately disagree with when it comes to the way their like leadership hierarchies work, where, and this might be isolated to just this wing, but like they were doing things like, letting sailors go, or like just circumvent the entire chain of command, effectively stripping every NCO of their authority, and they could just go drop stuff anonymously in this like drop box outside of the wing first sergeant's office, and then the wings descending on the MTLs, which is like an NMTI equivalent, or the instructors, and saying, why are you treating poor Airman Timmy wrong, even though they weren't, like it was bizarre, but doing a lot of things right. And I totally copied their homework when it came to the Airman Leader Program. If you go to Fort Lee, like to this day, I follow social media. To this day, they're wearing colored ropes, and their the leadership program, I'm assuming it's being implemented in the same way. They might just be throwing ropes on people and ignoring the rest of it. I don't know. But I copied their instruction. Like I went and got the Airman Leader Program instruction and the little handbook they had for the student leaders. And I literally just went through it and translated it into Navy and called it the Student Leader Program. And same color ropes, same everything. And I did that on purpose, not just because it was easy to copy it, but because we were in a barracks that we shared it with the Air Force. So there's like 500 plus airmen in the building. And then we had generally like 150-ish students. So sailors in the same building, right? So we shared the building, we shared a lot of common spaces. And when I was the chief of the NMTIs, like I wanted to work really closely with the MTLs because it just made sense. Like I wanted us to be able to like cross pollinate. So like if an MTL sees a sailor doing something wrong, they can light them up, and I empowered them to do that. because that's how the military works. I mean, any NCO is like, you're subject to the UCMJ all the time. So like rank matters in the hierarchy. And it was like a force multiplier too, because we were all undermanned. So if we work together with the MTLs, everything works better. And vice versa. Right. So, and I wanted the student leaders to be able to work. And so it made it a lot easier for them to work together as student leaders, because you don't have to translate everything into Navy or Air Force. Like, they just recognize the ropes and they're like, oh, you're the person I need to talk to. Same thing with the MTLs. It's like, if you want to correct something a sailor's doing, you just snatch up the nearest colored rope and say, hey, fix this. And it worked. And they're still doing it to this day. They're still putting ropes on student leaders. So I copied the Air Force's homework so hard. But it's because it was great and it worked. So you don't have to, I don't need you to invent anything. Just go copy their homework. This seems like a really easy win. And it seems like something that we're very obviously concerned about it. I mean, MCPON Smith was advocating for like a ton of childcare centers because it's a big stressor, particularly on single mothers, but like just couples in general, where they're busy and deploying and like the instruction. I really hate it because like, so Amber Viola, who I have a podcast coming out with like today. I mean, it's probably out right now, actually. I haven't even looked to see if it released properly. I should probably QA that really quick. But we talked about so she, well, I don't know that we talked about it, but when I was her chief, she was one of my NMTIs at Fort Lee. And so she and her husband, while they were still married, they separated eventually, but while they were still married, he was on an aircraft carrier and she was working for me at Fort Lee. Fort Lee is like 90 miles from Norfolk. So think about the challenges there. I think they were living like in the middle to split the difference, but like, and the carrier was in the shipyard and there was still a bunch of just insane demands because the ship didn't seem to care that Amber had to go to work ever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why doesn't your wife just take care of the kid? Like, what? She's active duty military, you dolt. Like, that's why she has a job too. She has duty. And we were undermanned at the time. So it was like, they were like 3 section. I mean, it was rough. And so, yeah, I mean, because we needed 24-hour coverage and I had like 4 NMTIs and myself. It was not fun. But, they just had no sympathy. And then, oh no, that's not relevant. Sorry. I had a little brain fart there. So it was insane. And just the fact that they're allowed to detail people 90 miles apart seems kind of bonkers to me, because that creates its own problems. So anyway, like that one just feels like a super easy home run, for Honea to just knock that one out of the park. I think that's about it, really. So I'm at the end of my notes. I know there was a lot of people that were dissatisfied with the immediate response. I was too. I wasn't a big fan of how that was conducted. I wish I would have been there live. Unfortunately, like I found out about it like the day before when he posted it and I had class. Like I couldn't get around it to be there unless I just ditched class, which I didn't, thank God. And because I've been getting sick too. So I'm like, I kind of treat it like I need to save those misses for when I'm sick or when I'm having issues. So, but like I said earlier, I really feel like we need to let him process, like give the slow connection a minute to buffer. And then hopefully once he's able, because it was a ton to digest for me. And like, I didn't even have to respond to all of them. Like I just did a 2-hour podcast, which is just like a commentary on some of it. Right. And I mean, you know, some of it's just because I talk a lot. I like to analyze things, but it's, yeah, I would give him the benefit of the doubt for now. Like leave your pitchforks and torches in the closet. Let the man process the insane amount of information and feedback you provided him, and see what comes of it. Because there's two things that I would say as far as like give him a minute to process it, give his staff a minute to process it, and then after they said the coming week to review it, so don't expect results at the end of the week, which we're almost at. Give it a few more weeks, even like a month from the AMA. Then start tagging that PAO account and saying, hey, when are we going to start seeing some answers and or results, like action? Because I don't know that they're going to think to publicize it in that way. I hope they do. I hope, because it seems logical that PAO staff would say like, hey, we got these questions from Reddit, and now that we have the answers, we would publish them on Reddit. And it sounds like that's what they intend to do. But I would say give them some time to formulate those responses and or take action like they seem to have. I don't know what action was taken and if it was effective in Coronado with those moldy barracks rooms, but hopefully, if the MCPON contacts you and, is all fire and brimstone, I would hope you rapidly course correct. But, I don't know. And he, that man's got a lot going on juggling flame chainsaws. So is he going to follow up? I don't know. I don't know. Are the 10 CMCs that are probably between him and that barracks manager going to follow up? I would hope so. I would think so. I would assume so. But you never know. So I would hold off on the torches and pitchforks. Give him like a month to process, formulate responses, which hopefully you'll start seeing trickle in before that on Reddit. Like they'll start they'll type some stuff up and then copy and paste it real quick and say, does this answer your question? But then the action-based stuff, the stuff that requires actual action, and not just like him calling somebody and punching him in the face. That's a quick fix. But I'm talking like the one I was mentioning with the co-locating co-parents. I think you could have a nav admin out in a month or two, but I've never been involved in a Navy-wide instruction revision. I've been involved in command level ones, and even those take a while to route. So, but deciding at the highest levels to make that type of a decision and then shoot out an nav admin, I would think you could do that in a month if you're really like pressing it. And I think there's a lot of value in pressing it because you could return a very tangible and meaningful result to the people in that thread that asked for it. And that's going to turn into that's a big win. That's a big publicity and or credibility win. And that earns you some trust from that group of people. Like, hey, I'm not just saying this. Like, I'm not just coming to Reddit to say, look, I'm on Reddit. And I did an AMA, and it's like, cool. What are you going to do with everything you just learned? What are you going to do to fix all these problems? I think stuff like that you could do quickly, you should do quickly, because it's going to earn the trust of a lot of people inside the organization you're charged with running. And it's the group you're charged with advocating with. So I have no doubt in my mind, that stuff meant something to him and that he really does want to make meaningful change in a lot of those ways. But a lot of that stuff is slow moving because of the suffocating bureaucracy that we exist in. So I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic is probably the best way of expressing it. I don't have enough data points to be just optimistic. Also, that's just kind of my wiring. It's kind of my default, but I think I've discussed this a little bit with some people. I don't know Honea personally, but people that I know who do, I've heard a lot of ridiculously positive things about this guy. I'm still cautiously optimistic because past experiences inform my outlook quite a bit. But maybe this guy's different. Maybe he is. I try, even with my outlook, my pessimistic, nihilistic view of the world, I really, really try to operate with a hard and fast rule of leaving the door open for this guy to be different. Even when it seems nonsensical, which I think to a lot of people it does, because they don't allow for that possibility anymore because of past experiences informing their outlook. Like, I get it, man. I get it. I understand why people are so skeptical or just outright denying that there's even a possibility that there could be a MCPON that genuinely cares about you and will take action to meaningfully change the organization to benefit you directly. And that any of those changes would even materialize while he's still in office. Like, everybody likes to, and even he said, which kind of irked me, you know, like even he said certain things. I don't plan on doing that anytime soon because it's hard. I'm like, everything, pretty much everything that's worth doing, that's going to provide value to the end user, that is all you should care about, which is sailors, is going to be hard. You're getting paid as an E10, bro. Like, put your back into it. And I'm sure he didn't mean it the way I'm interpreting it, but I don't know. I hope my friends are right. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that he's the exception to the rule. And I don't even know that I hope I'm wrong in like my generally dominant perception of the world. Like, I just assume that even when given reasons to be cautiously optimistic, in the back of my mind, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop because I've been conditioned to expect it. You know, like, of course he's going to face plant. Of course he is. But on the other side, I really hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope against all odds or against all expectations that Jim Honea hits it out of the park. And why wouldn't I? You know, like, why wouldn't anyone hope for that? Not for him even, for him a little, but like primarily for you, for the end user of his leadership and the actions or non-actions that he takes. It's like, why wouldn't you be hopeful? But hope's not a plan, in the immortal words of Yoda, I think. I'm going to wrap this up. It's already longer, like by an hour, than I thought it was going to be. Story of my life. I'm open to any kind. If you have more specific questions, I'm open to answering them. But this is going to be my the extent of my commentary on that Reddit AMA. I'm really glad it happened because I think you opened a door that you can never shut for all the subsequent MCPONs, and even like the fleets and forces. I think you kind of just you put them all on the hook for being able to do this. So I'm hoping if nothing else, it's opened the door to a lot more transparency just in what they're doing. Like, who can tell me what a force, a fleet, or the MCPON does on a regular, even the CNO and all them other guys. Like, what are they doing all day? Like, what are you getting paid to do that is meaningful to me at all? Right? Like, we just don't know. And that doesn't mean they're not doing anything. That just means we don't know. And so hopefully, if nothing else, this has opened up the door to things like a podcast that's not atrocious. Looking at you, CNO. YouTube channel where there's engaging content that's showing me, like, okay, do his all hands call. And don't film it with an iPhone from 100 yards away. Like, put a mic on him, get a real camera. Maybe a couple cameras, and someone edits it with some transitions. Ooh, like, you know what I mean? Like, let the MCs go nuts. Like, give them a check, cut them a check or whatever, and let them go buy equipment. And if they don't already have it, and do the damn thing, you know, like let these E4s and E5s really take charge of this and make an internet presence on all these platforms so that the MCPON's information is accessible to that group of people, and not just accessible, like it doesn't cause me pain to engage with it. You know, like I want to watch it, just like, and I'm not saying you got to like do anything weird, just like make it a quality recording, good audio, maybe some transitions, if not just a good angle where I can actually see you, and then publish it as a podcast, as a video podcast, as a whatever, as a YouTube thing, as all of the above, because it basically, they all kind of work together. So hopefully it opens the door to that. I think that will help a lot. I think a lot of people wildly misunderstand what those people exist for. And I can't even tell you what they do on a daily basis. I can speculate based on some like things I've heard and read and whatever. But yeah, I'm hopeful that if nothing else, we gain that. But you never know. With that, if you need anything from us, hit us up. Don't give up the ship podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us. Don't give up the ship podcast. Or you can DM us on Instagram or Reddit or Discord at dgutspodcast. And then, you know, I mean, as always, I'm open to all the criticism, questions, comments, concerns, whatever. So don't be shy. And then if you want to support us, you can go to dgutspodcast.com. There's a donate button on the website. Or you can go over to Don't Give Up the Ship Apparel. Get yourself some Naval Pride and Heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. It's at dgutspodcast.com. And then you can support us on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast. There's 5 tiers from $5 to $100 and everything in between. A lot of benefits, a lot of really cool engagement opportunities and such. If you're willing to do that, God bless you. I'm still amazed that people are supporting us via Patreon just because it just feels crazy to me. I don't know, but I love every one of you for doing so. It allows a lot of things to happen. It allows this cool video setup that I have. It allows me to pay all the bills and not come out of pocket in doing so. It's going to allow for expansion of the platform over time. And I'm just super appreciative of all 7 of you now. It's slowly growing. It's amazing. And yeah, if you can do any of those things and support us in any way, and if you can't commit dollars to it, I completely understand, and that's totally fine. You can like, share, subscribe, review on all the platforms for all the things. Subscribe on YouTube, get all the video podcasts that way, and it help us grow in that way, because like you need 1,000 subscribers now, and like I think it's like 4,000 hours total of like watch time to get monetized. And so even though I have the views, I don't have the subscribers, and I think the views have to be within a certain amount of time. So like one of the videos has like 11,000 views, but it's from forever ago. It's that Chiefs package one I did, which was like the only video on the channel for like 6 years. So if you can do that, like just watch the podcast on YouTube, subscribe to YouTube, and that'll help. And it doesn't just help it, like it'll help us make money through the advertising revenue once we get monetized. So like, and it doesn't cost you a cent. If you're consuming the podcast already, just consume it on YouTube, and that would be really helpful. Or both, you know, like if you want to watch it and listen to it in the car or whatever. But like subscribing and doing it on YouTube, tag your friends, share the videos, like all the things help, right? And it doesn't cost you a dime. Just click a few buttons. So if you want to support us, you can do it in that way as well, and we appreciate whatever mode you can. Like if you're just listening, I appreciate you. So and with that, that's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and don't give up the ship. Please hit the like button, drop a comment down below on what you thought, and subscribe to the channel.